Alchemist Public Market, as Julius noted, this is a project we're aiming for about a block away from Mirasol Village in the River District at 341 North 10th Street. This is a project that really pulls together all of Alchemist's primary programs and strengths into one site. And I do want to note as we go through this as well, the renderings we have here are from a previous iteration of this project. We were previously pursuing a different location that ended up not working out, but the great news is we did a year's worth of groundwork that primarily is able to transfer to the new site, which saves us a lot of time. But we will have new renderings coming out. These still give you a pretty good sense of what we're aiming for. If you're not familiar with Alchemist, just want to give a very quick overview because it is relevant. We have three major program areas. Our longest running and best known is probably our CalFresh at Farmers Markets program. So if you go to a farmer's market and you are in the region and see that there's a booth allowing people to use their CalFresh benefits to purchase groceries at that market, there's a very good chance Alchemist is either staffing that booth, running it, or in the background doing the behind the scenes accounting and state reporting, probably helped get it set up. So we're deeply enmeshed in the farmers markets in Sacramento and Yolo County. We also have our land-based program, we call it Neighborhood Empowerment, which has focused on turning blighted lots, vacant parcels that are kind of a community liability, dumping grounds, helping the community to transform those into community assets and gathering places, community gardens, parks. We've got a few of those. And then our youngest program is Alchemist Kitchen, which is, as Julius mentioned, was the recipient of the FIPO funding a few years ago, some seed money to get this started. And this is a food entrepreneurship program targeted at Sacramento area residents who want to start a food business and who are low income or from a historically underserved, historically disinvested community. And it includes a 12-week crash course on the basics of what they need to know to start and run a successful food business, as well as one-on-one consultation to develop a business plan, at least a first draft. And graduates from that program are eligible to apply for our incubator program, which takes on 2 cohorts a year of up to 5 people each time who receive one-on-one personalized coaching for 2 to 5 years as they actually get their business going. So at this point, we've had about 89 people go through Alchemist Micro Enterprise. We're opening up our application right now for our fall cohort, and we now have 15 people in our incubator program. I'll also note that we just recently, a few months ago, launched a production kitchen, a shared use kitchen where incubator participants can actually affordably start producing their food legally and safely. There's a shortage in those spaces around town. They're often priced at a point where those starting out who aren't operating at scale cannot achieve profitability. They can't hit sustainability. So we saw a real need to make that production space. And that will be relevant to this project. So again, this project has multiple elements. It's difficult to summarize quickly, but I'll do my best. At the heart of this site is a shared use commercial kitchen, like I was just talking about. So the site we're at in North Sacramento right now, we have a 3-year lease on it. It's kind of a mid-range stopgap to fill an immediate need. But we recognize that there's a need for a permanent kitchen, which we own. We can control the costs and preserve that as a permanent incubator space for new food businesses. So that's really at the core of this project, enabling about 25 businesses at a time to be starting and operating their businesses out of that kitchen. They might be making packaged goods for retail, sauces, jams, jellies, teas that are bottled. They might be doing prep work for their food truck or catering business. So anything around that area. So that's at the heart, but then beyond that, this site goes beyond your usual incubator kitchen, and the rest of the site concept is very public forward, very much focused on community gathering and retail access. So it's meant to be an activated space that becomes really a community heart. So it includes a cafe, which will be run by a nonprofit partner that won't be run by us, who is they actually went through our very first micro enterprise academy. So they're graduates of our program, and they are starting a workforce development cafe. So the goal there is to take 2 cohorts a year for about 6 months. It'll be paid employment training as people learn to be baristas, bussers, dishwashers, runners, the whole gamut. And then those people will be placed into jobs throughout the community. And so they're focusing on really on people with very high barriers to employment. That could be asylees and refugees who don't have any US work experience. It can be people who were recently incarcerated, maybe people escaping domestic violence who were kept from out of employment by their abusers. So all of these, but we also recognize that there will be a segment that comes as well from Mirasol Village too. So it'll be a diverse mix, about 10 people coming in with each cohort for 20 a year. We'll also have a retail store on site. The focus on this will be around Sacramento made and specifically from small makers. So as I mentioned, a lot of our participants in our incubator and in our micro enterprise program are developing packaged food products that they want to sell at retail. We help them get opportunities to sell at farmers markets. We're helping connect them with a few small retailers, but it's really difficult to get your product on store shelves for the first time. That's a huge barrier. And so this store is kind of built around that concept of giving them that first place to sell, first retail destination they can tell people to find their product. But we recognize that Sacramento has a much bigger maker community beyond our program. So not just food products, there are also makers of all types of goods. You can see that from Hacker Lab, similar projects. And so the goal is to work with all of these entrepreneurs and have their products there. Because this site is in the River District, is a short distance from Mirasol and Township 9, an area that has no grocery store, really is a food desert. We're also going to make sure that retail store carries some basic grocery staples so people don't have to make a long drive or a long public transit trip just to go pick up some milk or a loaf of bread. And then the thing I'm most excited about with this site is the outdoor food court. This will be, I'm gonna move on so you can look a little bit at this. We'll have a space with 8 food pods, we're calling them. There isn't a good, well-known name for these at this point. They're basically food trucks, but they are permanent structures. So it's that same concept, a very small commercial kitchen with a vending window. And we will have 8 of these. So right now our preliminary design is to have them in this area. These will be spaces where these small food businesses can incubate for a couple of years. They can get started selling to the public. They don't have to learn everything they need to know about running their own space from the start. They can really learn the fundamentals before they move on to their own brick and mortar or their own food truck or trailer. And so there will be a lot of benefits to them. Together they'll draw a much bigger crowd, a more permanent crowd. Marketing will be easier. They'll also, we know that when there are food truck events with a lot of them gathered, there are issues around all the disposable dinnerware, servingware. So it'll be using shared permanent plates and forks. So they'll share a dishwasher, bussers, runners who take care of that. So there are a lot of benefits to them. But that'll be a space where they can really affordably incubate for a couple of years. And that will rotate out 2 or 3 businesses each year. So it'll always have some refreshing, always some stability. So that's very exciting to us. We will also host a farmers market on a weekly basis. Again, this is an area that doesn't have a farmers market, has very little food access. So we will have a partner organization running that, but we'll be hosting it, and we're designing this to be an easy and great site to host the market. And of course, it will have CalFresh access to make it accessible to low-income neighbors, and we'll bring in a California Market Match program as well, which provides incentive dollars every week. The first $10 that you spend from CalFresh is doubled if you spend it on produce. So it really helps incentivize people to buy fresh, nutritious food from local farmers. And we will also be incorporated. It's not quite visible in here. This is an early draft of this design, but there will be a children's play area to make it an attractive place for families. They can come back. I have 2 young kids myself and know how difficult it can be to go anywhere. So we'll be providing that. And then finally, there will be a co-working space upstairs with this building. And this is born largely of the fact these entrepreneurs need a space to manage their businesses. They need a place to do that administrative work that isn't at home where they have kids pulling on them or cats crawling on the computer. So it's built around that. This will also be Alchemist headquarters, and then it will be open to the public because we'll have plenty of flex space and different types of opportunities in there for community groups, nonprofits, businesses to get started in that space. At this point, well, I'll keep going and I'll ask for questions at the end. To give you an idea of where exactly this is, again, we are talking about the River District. So the market will be right here at North D Street and North 10th Street. This is Mirasol Village right here, this big development. Township 9 is up here. The rail yards are right below. So if and when the soccer stadium is built, this is a 6-minute walk from the MLS stadium, just 3 blocks away. It's surrounded by major state office buildings that will provide a really strong customer base during the day. At lunchtime, there are very few options for lunch in the area. And I'll go back and note, next door is a vacant lot that the city is developing into the River District Park. This is a public park that features a basketball court, permanent cornhole, ping pong, and a playground. And so our site design integrates with it to connect to their path so that really creates just a large community space. Just to give you a sense, again, this is from the rail yards, but our project is right here, right up here at this corner. So some of the benefits this will be providing and just key things to note. We anticipate this project with all of its various uses will keep the block activated about 18 hours a day. So of course that helps create community, that also prevents crime, promotes public safety. We see it as inclusive economic development. It's a permanent place for anti-displacement, providing, I think it's pretty clear the River District is on its way to becoming a destination, which will one day be very difficult to afford to open a business in the area. But this will help disadvantaged entrepreneurs to take advantage of that destination by getting their start in a space that people want to be. The site will be densely used. Of course, going to have about 10 retail businesses between the 8 outdoors, the cafe, and the retail shop. Not to mention all the businesses running out of there, whether in co-working or in the kitchen. We're developing it to be very transit oriented. That's both active transit and public transit. So we'll be providing some really excellent bike facilities and amenities. And then this site is going to be within a 10-minute walk of 4 different light rail stations on 2 different lines, so blue and green. And we're talking to SAC-RT, opening the discussion about potentially locating a bus stop here as well. We'd like to make sure it's as accessible as possible. The way this is framed, the revenue generated by this project will be reinvested into the project, so it'll be continuous improvement there and maintaining affordability. We anticipate this site will create about 330 jobs in the first 10 years. That's not including the construction jobs. That's just from the workforce development and the small business creation. And this site is also great because it will help free up our Alchemist Kitchen program, our entrepreneurship program, from being so grant dependent. We know that those grant priorities will change in a few years, and we need to be ready for that. So this site works out pretty well as a business plan to become self-sustaining and to help sustain that program itself. So as you get the sense, there's a lot going on here. There's the consumer experience, and then there are other benefits going on. So this is an all-electric campus. It'll be an all-electric shared use kitchen. Obviously, that's the way things are headed, and this would be a great chance to help these entrepreneurs become familiarized with the benefits of an electric kitchen. We're going to have massive solar installations on the roof, and then shade structures over the dining court, which will also be solar. So we're anticipating at least 90% generation of the on-site energy needs. To save time, I'll just move on from that. So our project budget, we are looking at a total of, looks like the total's not on here, but it's about 6.4 million. It breaks down along these lines, but more importantly is around the funding. So we are pursuing a grant from the US Economic Development Administration. We've been in talks with them for over a year around this. They've given us a lot of insight, and we know that our project is, really fits what they're working on. It actually fits better with the change in administrations. And yeah, so because this is opportunity zone, this project is eligible for 80% of the costs for acquisition and construction to be covered by the US EDA. That does have a limit. We're anticipating their limit's going to be about 5 million. So that's just under 80%, but it's still sizable. We already have pro bono support from Dreyfuss and Blackford. So if you know Chris Barkley there, one of the lead architects at Dreyfuss, he is working with us pro bono on this project. That counts toward our match that we have to bring in toward the EDA. So that's estimated to be almost a $200,000 value. Stoel Rives is providing his pro bono legal services valued around $107,000, which means that we have left about 1.12 million to be committed toward this project to help it over. We have spoken to a lot of partners who have expressed interest, and I think it's easier for people to come in on the back end when after the EDA has funded. But one thing we wanted to highlight in this meeting is the EDA has updated their notice of funding, their RFP, so that they are now looking to see these funds, the 20% match, they want to see those committed at the time of application. And so we are looking to apply by September 30th at the latest. And we need to be able to help document where that final 17% is coming from for this project. These can be contingent commitments. They don't have to be actual money deposited. They're looking for letters that make a commitment contingent on the EDA funding the award. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. So that is what they're targeting. And to give you an idea of the timeline, we will be in a purchase agreement by the end of this month, probably by the end of this week. We've been negotiating for a few weeks with the seller. It looks like we're at final terms. Our board just voted to approve the PSA, and the seller, we're expecting to hear back today or tomorrow that they've signed. So again, we're submitting by the end of September. And it takes about 6 months for the EDA to finalize an award. So by April, possibly by March, this would be awarded. We will also know about a month to a month and a half after we apply whether or not we are on track to receive this grant. They let you know after it goes through preliminary assessment, and then has about 5 months of dotting their I's and crossing their T's. Then I won't land on this page, but this is a few similar concepts around the country that have proven successful. But I will stop there because I've been talking, and I'm sure there are questions.
All right, thank you so much, Sam. I know one thing about this group is that folks are not shy. And so please, for everyone, feel free to unmute yourself and pose your question. If you would like or prefer, you can put your question in the chat and I can relay the question to Sam. But please, any questions anyone may have?
Hi, Sam, it's Lane. I believe you noted in the initial handout about a potential loan kind of on the back end. Is there any potential for a loan being part of the commitment?
Yes, so we can use debt for some of the commitment. We know internally from our pro forma that we'd be comfortable with $250,000 in debt. We'd obviously like to be fully funded because that will help us maintain affordability for the entrepreneurs, and also it'll help us get to sustainability faster. But yes, $250,000 we're comfortable with. possibly somewhat above that, not creeping up too far beyond that. But the EDA will accept some portion of debt, and they can also potentially accept some of that as a stopgap before the final capital campaign. But they're really wanting to see more commitments than just debt too.
Right. I just know that there's a lot of programs that are CRA related when it comes to loans. So I'm just curious more than anything.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right, thank you, Lane. Any other questions from anyone? I think this means your presentation was absolutely amazing, and you covered all bases, Sam. All right, anyone else?
Generous
Any questions?
This is Matt. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Matthew.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to jump in there. I probably can't speak too much because full disclosure, I'm on the board of Alchemist CDC. I'm standing in for Donald Terry right now. He's stuck in another meeting. But I've actually been a bit out of the loop with the FIPO commitments this year. Was there a full commitment with FIPO this year?
No, so we haven't done the next round of FIPO. We've had some conversations to kind of streamline our process, and so this is not necessarily FIPO related. I just reached out to FIPO partners and other entities that may be able to help support and fund. And also, I'm glad you mentioned FIPO. One of the things that I stated in my outreach to you all was recognizing that there may be other branches or departments of your bank that would handle this type of funding, or other colleagues that might need to be aware. And so we'll be sharing the recording with you all, and also the updated kind of project PDF that Sam has, so that you might be able to share it to other colleagues or other folks in your network who might be able to provide the type of commitment funding that Sam is in need of. But yeah.
Because one other thing I discussed with Sam was, and I don't know what the appetite here is with the banks present, but for that possible debt being done as an EQ2. I don't know how many banks are still doing EQ2s that are on the call today. An EQ2, if you're not familiar, it is a CRA qualified investment, but it's very similar to debt. It's just not treated as debt. Usually, it does require the organization to pay it off, and usually at the below market rate. So that's something if any banks are looking to do an EQ2, I think this would be one opportunity.
All right, thank you, Matthew.
So my question, Sam, was, well, first of all, I'd like to say that this is a great project, and we're involved with HUD. HUD's involved with the Mirasol Village project, and to have this as an adjunct close by is just perfect. Wanted to find out if you've interacted with the state for resources, and also HHS, the Department of Health and Human Services, if you've been in contact with either of those.
We have not. I've been mentioning to people too, the state's kind of a missing middle on this for us. We've been actively looking into state grants and similar, but we haven't found anything that's been a great fit for this at this point. We're definitely open to being pointed in directions that we have missed or are unaware of.
Are you interacting with GoBiz?
Yeah, I did reach out to GoBiz. They didn't have much for us on that, but it's I don't know if we just didn't really catch their attention or anything. It was reaching out through the website. That's my best connection there. So.
Yeah, I think we Julius actually has some great connections. We have great connections with GoBiz, who can get you to actually the regional contact for this area, and he's been doing a lot with Sacramento, and I think he would be a really good contact to look at the project and then align some resources from the state, because you do cover a number of areas with related to, you know, the healthcare aspect of it. I think is some, and the economic development piece and the, you know, the climate tech and all of that tie in. And I think that'll fit some things they're looking at. And Julius knows I've mentioned this before, but the health and human services piece, you know, right now what you're talking about actually aligns to the social determinants of health really nicely. It hits all the different aspects. And so I think it'd be something they'd be interested in knowing about. And I'll go ahead and direct some contacts to this project. And just wondered, is there a possibility that the kitchen there would have like cooking demos to instruct people on like nutritional foods and cooking, that type of situation?
It's a possibility. One thing, you know, because it's a shared use kitchen and it'll be a production kitchen for around 25 or 30 businesses, it's going to be pretty heavily booked. We have talked about the fact that, you know, there's definitely a possibility that a couple hours a week could be booked up for that sort of public demonstration, that kind of lesson. That wouldn't make too big of a dent in it. But yeah, it would have to, it's definitely a possibility.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Hey, Sam, I want to let you know that I'll talk to our CRA department, try to get a little bit more information on what might be available on their end. But I can't commit to any dollar amount right now, but you can be certain that we'll participate.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I wanted to mention too for everyone that I know this is a complicated project, and you know it does tie to what we already do, but there may be concern of this is a lot to take on. But I do want to highlight that the cafe and retail shop are going to be run by our nonprofit partner, not by us. The farmers market will be run by a partner, although hosted by us there. These restaurants, you know, they're each individual businesses. So for the most part, the real expansion here is an increasing involvement in property management for us. We're already doing the food incubator program and that training, and these other elements are largely going to be run by other organizations. So it's not we're trying to swallow an elephant all at once. We've got different people tackling different pieces of this.